Non-Monogamy Help is a podcast where your questions about open, non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships are answered. Our host, Lola Phoenix, will consult a licensed therapist with over a decade of experience to address your problems. Names and locations have been changed or censored to keep your questions anonymous. You're listening to Non-Monogamy Help, the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Non-Monogamy Help podcast. So if you're unaware, Non-Monogamy Help is also a column that you can read. The letters are different for the column. You can read it at medium.com/non-monogamy-help. And that's where the columns are posted. If you want to get the columns and the podcast in your inbox, you can email subscribe at tinyletter.com/non-monogamy-help. And if you want to get everything early and be super awesome and support me and get like other bits of my writing that I do, you can become my patron on Patreon at patreon.com/LolaPhoenix. Awesome. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's get to this week's letter. I've been married to my anchor partner for many years, but we only opened up as Polyam about a year ago. I entered into a loving relationship with my second partner a little less than half a year ago. She is also new to Polyam, but has had a fair bit more experience than us. In any event, early in the relationship, mistakes were made and conflict arose a few times. As the dust settled, it ended up that my second partner told my anchor she did not want to be friends with her and just wanted a civil and friendly, courteous relationship, which from her perspective was a fair boundary. My anchor and I prefer breakfast table polyamory and has a different interpretation of what that means. So in the breakdown of their friendship, my anchor got quite hurt feelings and feels she can't trust her anymore. This is fair because some things were said and implications made that were kind of mean and hurtful to her. I don't believe any of it was meant to be hurtful, but there was a lack of sympathy and gentleness. My secondary partner wants little to nothing to do with my anchor partner because she finds her emotionally needy, dramatic, and feels that no matter how hard she tries to assure her that she is not a threat, she will always be perceived as such. So she set a boundary with my anchor and said, I no longer have the energy to be friends with you, so I'm going to take that off the table. So here I am, stuck deeply in love with each woman, fully able to see each other's perspective, but unable to help repair the damage. They're completely unable to have grace for each other and seemingly incapable of seeing each other's perspective. From my position, they are both right, both made mistakes, and so did I. My anchor is now hurt because we both want kitchen table polyamory, and now I am in love with a woman who does not want to be friends with her, and my other partner does not want to put energy into something that feels like a lost cause and an unending source of drama. I feel it would be devastating to end a relationship with someone who treats me so well and loves me so beautifully. She brings me profound happiness when we are together. She loves and respects me, and I bring a lot to her life as well. From my perspective in our relationship, she has done nothing to deserve me breaking her heart. On the other hand, my staying with her is causing my wife to feel uncared for, misunderstood, and is a constant stressor in our relationship. The three of us have a lot of combined friends, so social gatherings are now super strained if the two of them are invited to the same space or event. So, how can I make this situation better? I don't care if they are buddies. I don't see it as an issue so long as they are nice to each other and treat each other with kindness and grace. Right. Sincerely, Mr. Split in Half. So, there are a few things going on here. First of all, what the heck happened? You kind of tiptoeing around the issue. You're not saying what was said. And I think, that is a big deal to me because, we both have stories from each side. One side saying, this person is too dramatic. The other person is saying, this person really hurt me and I can't trust them anymore, which is quite a big thing. It's one thing for like things to get out of hand, where one person to call each other a dickhead or whatever, and the other to be upset about it. But it's quite another thing for someone to not trust them anymore. So it's hard for me to really know who is not necessarily in the right, but who is necessarily specifically whether or not your wife has. It's understandable for her to feel betrayed by you continuing to have this relationship with this other person, because from my perspective, like, your relationships are your relationships, and it's not really anyone's business. However, the big thing that you've said, and you've said breakfast table polyamory and kitchen table polyamory, and I actually looked it up because I had no idea what this was. And for those people who don't know, so kitchen table polyamory, let me actually see if I can pull up an official definition. From what I got, from when I looked it up, kitchen table polyamory was basically the idea, that, like, hold on, let me, like, kitchen table polyamory, I'm gonna say polyamory because I don't say poly, the idea that even if you don't have a direct romantic relationship with your partner's partner, they are still important to them and thus like family to you. This is one of those moments that I have where my complete difference to so many people in this community really stands out, because the term like family and the idea of it being like my kitchen table where I grew up is not a good thing to me. I wouldn't want my relationships to be anything like the relationships I have with my family or what happened around my kitchen table growing up. But I get the gist. I get the idea. It's that, you're still close. You have a close friendship. And it's a nice idea, but I think it's unrealistic to expect everyone to get along in that way. And this is the thing that, people say whenever you get involved in the polyamory community. Usually, people say, oh, there's no right way to do it, or no right way. But stuff like this makes it seem like there may not be a right way, but there's an ideal that people are aiming for. And I get the idea, like, it'd be great if everybody got along and there wasn't any fighting and there wasn't any drama and people just loved each other. Wouldn't that be great? And if and buts were coconuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. I think it's slightly idealistic. And maybe that's because of who I am. Because I know that you're not dating me, but I know from just who I am that I can be an extremely disagreeable person. I don't get along with people very easily. I don't really like socializing. And I've put myself in this position in the past, forcing myself to be friends with someone just because they were dating my partner. And it made me freaking miserable. And I hated it. And I became more bitter. And I said, like, one of the cattiest and horriblest things I've ever said to a person is something that I said to a metamor, because she was basically forcing me to be friends with her. And I didn't want to do that. And I hated it. And I resented it. So it's never a good, it's a nice ideal to shoot for, but to make it so much that you are not allowed to have a relationship with somebody else unless your anchor partner is best friends with them is just, it's not really fair, and it's not really realistic. And like you said, you're now put in this position where it seems like you're in the middle, and one person has a fair boundary, and now it seems like your wife is kind of saying you kind of have to split up with this girl, or she feels uncared for, misunderstood. And, it's hard for me to say because, on the surface, just looking at the situation, it does seem unfair. Like, it's not as if, I don't know what your secondary partner said. I don't know what happened. I don't know what went down. Maybe your secondary partner completely insulted her. And because I've also been in situations like that. I've also been in situations where my partner is friends with someone who insulted me on a massive level, to the point where I don't talk to them anymore, and I've blocked them, and I don't want to be around them, and I don't even want to hear my partner talking about them, because I don't like them. And it took me a while to get to a point where I didn't feel like my partner, being friends with them was some type of a betrayal, because it does sometimes feel like that. Like, if you're with someone, and they witness you being hurt, you would hope that, if you witness someone hurting your wife, coming up to your wife and saying, oh, you suck, fuck you, you would kind of go, hey, it's not necessarily your business, but it's your partner. Like, to a certain extent, it's not necessarily that you have to, make a rule that no one's allowed to ever be mean to your partner, or that you never be friends with anyone who doesn't like your partner, because people don't like each other sometimes. But it's that, I can see a situation where this secondary has said something that's really hurt her, and you haven't stood up for her in any way, if it was personal, and her feeling a bit betrayed by that. Like, I can also see that side, because even they don't have to get along, and you're right, like, it's not an issue that they aren't best friends, and they should be treating each other with kindness and with grace. Grace sounds a bit meh, but at least being, civil and friendly and not insulting one another. I don't think that's I don't think that's an unfair thing to expect. But at the same time, I want to know what was said, because there are people in my life who have insulted me or hurt me to the point where I don't want to be friendly with them. I don't even want to be courteous with them. I don't ever want to see or talk to them. And that's my boundary. But it would, if my friend were to date them, or if my partner were to date them, it would hurt a little bit. So yeah, on the whole, I see what's going on here. I really think first thing is, you and your partner really need to talk about this kitchen table polyamory thing. This is what you both want, but you need to discuss that. What does that mean? Is it something that you both want to the point where you're going to destroy any relationship if not everyone's best friends? Because it just doesn't seem fair or realistic to either of you. So you need to talk about that, independent of this relationship with this other person. You need to think about what that means, because it's also, if you think about it, it's also really fucking daunting for someone. Think about you going out to date a new person. Imagine if not only you have the stressors and you have the kind of whole emotional situation of meeting someone new and starting a relationship with them, and how do we feel about each other, and how deep is this going to go, and what's going to come of this, and then on top of that you also have to be best friends with their partner. It's not really fair, and it's a really awkward ass situation to be in as a quote unquote secondary. It's kind of shitty situation to put a secondary in, because maybe they've got their own business and their own things, and they've got plenty of best friends. They don't want another best friend. I mean, that's perfectly fine. So I think you guys need to discuss this, because I get the idea and it sounds nice, but just because it sounds nice doesn't mean it's realistic, or that it's a fair thing to ask of someone coming into a relationship, or even a good expectation to put on yourself, because it's very possible that in the process of wanting this kitchen table polyamory thing, you're putting someone under pressure to be best friends with your wife, and that's actually causing these conflicts. To be honest with you, like, me being forced to be friends with someone will cause me to have a conflict with them more than it would if I just was going to be courteous with them and just like every other person that I meet. So you might want to think about that one. Second thing, I think that it's hard for me to say whether or not the feelings of betrayal are necessarily founded or not. I think that both sides can have boundaries, because right now the only person that has put forth their boundary, and a fair boundary, is your girlfriend or your secondary. She's put forth a boundary that's perfectly fair. She doesn't have to be friends with your wife. She is fine. She's established that she doesn't feel it will work. She doesn't want to pursue it. She's willing to be courteous, and isn't trying to start anything. But that's her boundary, and that's fine. But you know what? Your wife can also have some boundaries too. And maybe your wife's boundaries are, I don't really want to hear about this person. So if she's so hurt by this situation that she doesn't feel that she's able to be civil and friendly and courteous, then maybe what she needs to do is say, do you know what? I don't want to really see this person. You go see them, visit their house, or go whatever. You go see her separately of this. I don't really want to talk about it very much. If we're in the same space or event, we will maybe you will pretend like each other doesn't exist. And maybe that seems stupid, but, if that's going to make your wife feel better because she doesn't feel capable of pretending to be friendly with someone who's really hurt her, then I think that's also fair. Like I said, I'm in situations now where my partner is friends with someone who I fucking hate, to be honest with you, because they were intensely rude to me, and I've blocked them on Facebook, and I don't see them. If I saw them, I'm not gonna punch them in the face, but I certainly won't talk to them. I certainly won't acknowledge them, and I certainly won't be friendly or courteous to them. And if they came up to me and said something, I'd probably say something like, I don't like you. Why are you talking to me? Go away. And I'm okay to do that because I feel hurt by this person and I don't want to speak to them. And until they are going to apologize to me for what they said, I don't want anything to do with them. And that's fine. And my partner can be friends with that person. There was a period of time where it was hard for me and I felt a little betrayed because I wanted my partner. I feel that way towards my partner. If people insult my partner, I have a really hard time wanting to stay friends with them. If people hurt my partner, maybe it's none of my business technically, but it is my business because it's my partner. And that's how I am. I'm that way about my friends. When people... It's kind of almost bad because people attack me or insult my character, and I'm willing to forgive them. But the second they come for people that I care about, that's it. I'm really, people hurting my partner or hurting my friends is not something I take very lightly. And so it's hard for me sometimes to accept that, okay, my partner understands that this person hurt me, but doesn't feel like it's any of their business and doesn't, has this friendship with this person that they value and maybe doesn't have a lot of friendships, so feels like, they want to hold on to this friendship. And, I know that nothing can be gained by forcing my partner to stop being friends with that person. And I think that's what your wife also needs to realize, is that her feelings of being misunderstood and uncared for and that someone's not sticking up for her after she's been hurt are perfectly valid. She's allowed to feel that way, but she also needs to look at the situation and say, honestly, would forcing you to break up with that person work? Would it work? Would you not be extremely resentful? Would you not be hurt? And she needs to kind of look at it from that aspect. And you might want to talk about this with a polyamory friendly therapist together and work through these issues, because it took a bit of talking between me and this isn't even someone that my partner's dating. I think if it was someone, if they were dating this person, it would probably be a little more difficult, but I would still want to work through it. We'd still sit down and we'd talk about it, and I'd say, this person really hurt me. But when my partner explained to me, I do understand that they hurt you, and I don't think that was right. I don't have a lot of friends. This is the value I get from that friendship, and I don't want to end it because I get a value from it. And then I was able to understand and go, okay, is forcing my partner to control who they're friends with or control who they date, is that going to inevitably work in my best interest? Maybe I'm coming at it from a completely selfish standpoint, I don't know. But is it going to work? It's not going to work. My ultimate goal isn't to control who my partner dates or is friends with. My ultimate goal is to be happy and for them to be happy and for us to have a good relationship. And I know that if I force them to not, if I force them to break up a friendship that means something to them, that's going to cause resentment. So, it's a balance. If it gets to a point where your wife just literally feels like the fact that you aren't angry that this person said these things to her, it might be something that, for her is not workable. And that's her boundary, and that might be something, that might be a conclusion that she comes to. But I I think that you need to think about explaining, this is a relationship I value, I get a lot out of it. She has this boundary. What are your boundaries? I can not talk about her. I can, make an effort to try and go to things with you and go to things with her and not try to force you two to be in the same environment. Find out what boundaries would help her make her feel better. But she needs to understand that forcing you to break up a relationship isn't, she could do it, and I think it would work. Like, if she said it's me or this person, I think you probably would pick her. But would that fix the situation? I don't think so. Maybe she'd be happier because she'd never have to see this person again, but you'd be miserable, and maybe that is a hard limit for you. Maybe being forced to get rid of this relationship would damage your intimacy together so much that it's not repairable. So I think you guys need to talk this through with a polyamory friendly therapist. If I had a bit more information about exactly what was said, I think I'd be able to give a little bit more of an idea of whether or not. But either way, like, if your wife feels these things, like, her feelings are valid, and you have to, whether or not they're quote-unquote logical or whatever, it's important to recognize them, and it's important to work with them rather than against them. But you need to kind of work out what boundaries can you put in place for her, or what boundaries she can put in place that will make her feel better. But I don't think from the other side, I don't know what the secondary said, but I don't think it's certainly not an unfair boundary to say, I don't want to be friends with you. Because equally, I think if you put your secondary partner in a position where she's forced to pretend to be friends with your wife, she's just going to get resentful, and she's probably eventually going to get sick of it and leave. So yeah, I think you need to have a talk with your wife and decide about this kitchen table polyamory thing, if that's a realistic thing you want to aim for. And also think about ways to make her feel that you do care for her, and she feels misunderstood, so try to understand her, try to understand the situation, try to make her feel like you understand her feelings, and do that with a therapist. That can help a little bit if you can find someone. But yeah, that's basically what I think would help out this situation, and I hope that it helps. I'm really sorry that you're going through this. It sounds really difficult, and I hope that this helps, and good luck. Hey folks, just a addition from the therapist. They say, one thing that stands out to me with this one, they're brand new to polyamory, about a year. They're engaging in hierarchy and kitchen table polyamory, which makes me wonder if there's some anxiety about the nesting relationship getting damaged or more distant because they opened. I wonder if the wife is feeling betrayed and threatened because it's a new situation where he's making a choice to turn towards someone else for the first time. Early in my polyamory existence, I learned that positively choosing one person wasn't against or negative against the other person, though that those were independent realities. I wonder if his wife is having trouble seeing that in this way. I also wonder if there's some insecurity going on. I've seen jealousy create some pretty bad fights. So that's the therapist's 2 cents. So that has been the 6th episode of the Non-Monogamy Help podcast. As I said in the beginning, it'd be really, really awesome to have your support for the podcast and for the column. If you want to become my patron, even just $1 a month, and even if you're not American, it can translate into other currencies, but it just says $1 a month. So if you want to become my patron, that would be really, really helpful and really, really super awesome. Just go to patreon.com/Lola Phoenix. And yeah, I will see you all the next time I see you. Or rather, you'll hear me the next time you hear me. Alright, thank you so much. Bye! You've been listening to Non-Monogamy Help. Our podcast music has been provided by Chris Albury Jones at albury-jones.com, and the art was made by Dom Jung at domduong.com. Thank you for listening.